Hello, everybody, and welcome to the TeacherCast Educational Network. My name is Jeff Bradbury.
And I'm Nick Amaral.
And welcome to Ask the Tech Coach. This is episode number 48. Today, we're talking all about the differences between you and your counterparts in the technology department. Today, we're going to be talking about you being an EdTech coach versus them being an EdTechnician. I want to bring on my co-host, Nick Amaral. Nick, how are you today? Welcome to the show.
Jeff, excited to be back and get started with a new topic. This is one that I think a lot of us as tech coaches, tech integration specialists deal with often, weekly, as far as the debate and discussion between what you should and shouldn't be doing between being an EdTech coach and the EdTechnician and that the IT break fix work.
Oh, absolutely. And, you know, our job as EdTech coaches really comes down to we're here to serve. We're here to help out. We're here to push innovation. But you know what? Everybody kind of takes a look at us and has different thoughts about what we do. Maybe they don't quite understand the position. Nick, maybe you've been in the hallway and somebody says, hey, can you come in and fix my printer? Hey, my smartboard doesn't work. Hey, can you fix my phone? What do you do if you're put in that awkward position where you have to look at somebody and go, yeah, that's not my job, but I'll, you know, and then we finish off the sentence there, right? Those are hard conversations to have if it's a teacher, if it's an aide, but it's even a harder conversation if it's the principal asking you those questions, right?
Absolutely. And that happens too, right? I mean, we can't check that off the list that it's not going to be. I've worked with principals that, want to talk about and come up with ideas for things that they do in their personal lives. Hey, Nick, what's the best practice for moving pictures into some digital photo album, or how can I put together a slideshow for a kid's birthday party or something like that? So it's the things that pop up kind of all the time that we kind of struggle with, should or shouldn't we be doing, or how much time should we focus on? But this is a great discussion to have.
And really, sometimes these things pop up because people don't know who we are. They don't understand the role. And a lot of that is on us, right? We haven't done a good enough job branding ourselves. We haven't done enough job explaining to our school districts who we are, what we're there for, and why we exist in the district. And if you are in that same position, I implore you guys, check out our brand new free online course on building your EDU brand. And now look, it doesn't matter if you're a tech coach in a school district in your first or second year, or maybe if you're a podcaster or a blogger looking to grow a brand, maybe bring in some extra income off of your website or podcast. We have got a great multi-email course called Build Your EDU Brand. We are going to talk all about how to find that target audience, create content for them, choose your website strategy. We talk a little bit about SEO, and then we wrap it up with building a newsletter. And guys, I got to tell you, we have a lot of tech coaches on the list. We got a lot of teachers. We got a lot of podcasters on the list. We are creating it with you guys in mind. And as your questions about these topics are coming in, I'm creating even more content on TeacherCast with this stuff in mind. So if you guys are looking for some great stuff this year, especially as the weather gets warmer, I know my paycheck is coming to an end. Nick, your paycheck is coming to an end at the end of the year. And I know you guys as tech coaches, you guys are coming to that end of June. And you guys are going to be looking at saying, how do I get some stuff for the summertime? How do I get a little bit of bling, if you will? This is a great way to figure out how to bring in a little side income. Build Your EDU Brand course. It is free. You can check out everything over on our show notes. This is Ask the Tech Coach episode number 48. It is free to sign out. Check it out today. Friends, before we move on with our show, I wanted to let you guys know I have been in education now for almost 20 years, and I've seen the changes some students have come to face every single day, whether it's going through school hungry, not being able to see a doctor when they're sick, or not getting the proper rest at night. These challenges make it hard for kids to focus on their learning. I remember a story of a student who came to my office one day and she could barely stay awake due to all the circumstances happening around her at home that were beyond her control. I didn't know what I could do, and I wanted to be able to help her out in any way that I could. Thankfully, Concordia University in Portland is leading the way with their 3 to PhD program that helps to combat students' fears, freeing them to pursue their highest dreams. They're revolutionizing education by creating a holistic model that provides groceries, healthcare, and even clothing to students right here on campus, helping them thrive and helping our communities strengthen and grow. Concordia's College of Education offers online and on-campus programs where students have the opportunity to learn about a more compassionate approach to education and see how nurturing the whole student can lead to amazing things. To learn more about how you can help students conquer their monsters and achieve their highest dreams, visit cu-portland.edu/Let's Conquer. That's cu-portland.edu/Let's Conquer. And use the hashtag #NatureEducateGrow. And we are back. And Nick, today we're talking all about being an EdTech coach or an EdTechnician. What are we talking about here? Like, when we say EdTech coach versus EdTechnician, what does that really mean to you as a tech coach?
So for me, it's that discussion between the EdTech coach as the person who facilitates and understands how to best use technology in the classroom and its application in the classroom, how to design lessons, and how to work with that tech with students, where the EdTechnician, or more of the IT side of it, is more about the hardware, more about the products and the devices themselves. And what you usually find, at least I see, is that, your IT department is great and they understand the ins and outs of those devices, but there's usually a struggle between what they think you should or can use with a tool and actually how the application of the tool best works seamlessly inside the classroom. So the EdTech coach is the one who's trying to facilitate that learning. We're saying the EdTechnician is then basically the idea of the EdTech coach as the IT personnel as well, right? So now their role is kind of do both pieces.
And these are things that we want to make sure that there's a distinct difference between. I like to explain it to my teachers as this: if it has a plug and it's broken, right? That's call the tech support guys, put in a tech ticket, let them help you out. Like, it's not my role to fix printers, to change ink, to calibrate smart boards, right? But if it has a plug and you're interested in learning how to use it in your classroom, then you bring me in, right? But Nick, the problem there is, okay, like, you're in a classroom, maybe you walk in, maybe somebody sees you in the hallway and they pull you into the classroom. They say, can you help me with your smart board, right? We all had this situation, and you go into the classroom thinking, yes, I'm going to help that teacher with their smart board. It's going to be great. We're going to learn how to make Google Docs and slides and all these wonderful things. And they go, yeah, I think the bulb is burned out. Can you get me a new one? You have these awkward conversations. How do you easily say to somebody, Nick, that's not my job. You need to call somebody else. Because as soon as you put up that wall, you're kind of in that, now you're useless to that teacher conversation. You got to get them back somehow as, okay, I'm the innovative guy. Like, so how do you have that conversation with a teacher that says, I can't help you here, go somewhere else? How do you handle that?
Well, I think it's a fine line. I would say to not kind of disperse this idea of being the ed technician completely, especially in the beginning, if you're trying to foster some relationships and whatnot. I think at times being able to say, you know what, okay, I maybe I know about that tool, or I think I can hook this up for them, or I can show them how how to use their phone, whatever it is. I think sometimes do those things in order to kind of build a relationship. The struggle and the fine line then is you start to do those things, and that's the only role that people then see you in.
They bring you in just for that, and then that's how they put that label on you. And even though you go in there and say, I want to help you with this, they go, oh, I don't need that. This is what I need. And you're like, you're not getting it. But there are times where you want to bridge that divide. You want to start to figure out, okay, how can I be this person's friend to start the conversation? So, maybe Nick brings me in and says, can you fix my smartboard? And I go, no, but give me a second. I'll make a phone call for you. Right. So you have those opportunities to kind of be the hero for that teacher. And even then they might go, oh, well, I'll just call him when I need something and then he'll find. Because, more often than not, we as tech coaches, we're in the classrooms and running around the buildings mostly more often than our tech support specialists.
Yeah, absolutely. And you're kind of, you're dead on with that. I think the idea then is, when that teacher has you in the room and you then start to push, I think the goal then is for you to take onus and to say, okay, let me actually be the one to reach out to IT. Let them know what's going on. But hey, you can tell the teacher, but I'll be here to help walk you through this. Or maybe once IT hooks you up and shows you what to do, if you need me to better explain it, to teach you how to use it. Now you start to take it from the fixing part to the teaching you how to utilize the device or the piece of equipment. So I think being there even when IT is hooking up is a nice way to kind of bridge the gap between, being the guy who's actually doing the fixing to being the guy who is the coach and facilitating it.
And there's a few things here. Like let's just kind of put out here, Nick, we're all on the same team. Mm-hmm. However, in many school districts, the tech coach is in a different department than the IT people. And even when they are in the same department, they've got the same boss or whatever you want to look at, right? You look at yourself as not one of them, but they look at you as you have the word technology on your shirt. Doesn't matter what kind, where, fix it. Help me do something, right? Because we've all also been in the situations where you say, hey, let me show you this great thing on your smart board. And then they go, oh, it's broken, or, oh, they didn't install that software, or, oh, I didn't know it could, there's always that way, that moment where you have to be politically correct in favor of, against, whatever the right words are, the other people, that the IT department, right? So you kind of have to always be on that good, bad, what are we going to say? We have to be politically correct with everything, right? We're always on the same team.
Absolutely. And that's why I think I've always appreciated the fact when schools, and I know, Jeff, this is kind of one of the things we've been talking about as a future topic, was kind of how different districts play with the role of the EdTech coach and their expectations. But this is why I think I've appreciated the fact when we start to remove technology coach as a PD type position, we'll call it that, to more of like curriculum coach, staff trainer and development, digital, learning specialist. I think when you start
mover.
Yeah, there you go. I think when you start to get into those titles a little bit more, people start to see you in a light as, oh, okay. Like for me, for instance, my direct supervisor right now is the curriculum director. My IT department, theirs is the network administrator / our technology coordinator, right? So that's not my direct boss, but it puts the onus on the staff now understanding like, oh, okay, he's part of curriculum. He's part of the learning and the lesson plans and all of that stuff. He's not part of IT. And I think it also helps when your admin in your school starts to delineate the difference between the two, and they make it known to their teachers and your staff that you're working with that, Nick is the guy you want to go see when you want to work on lesson planning, you need facilitation, you want to learn how to best utilize a tool in the classroom, which then starts to separate us a little bit more from just being tech people to being more about, the learning with the students in the classroom.
Well, and it really comes down to, we tried to say this earlier, but by the way, can you tell that we're passionate about this topic, right? it really comes down to working as a team, right? I've seen so many IT people in many, many districts. They come in, they install something or they fix something, and then they walk out, right? Because they've got a ton of other tech tickets to do. What you want to try to do is to work with your staff to say, look, if I'm going to install a smart board, if you're going to install the smart board, try to sell it a little bit. Like, here's the smart board. It can do this, and this. Go find Nick. He's going to be able to tell you how to do this more.
Absolutely.
But if you just install the smart board and walk away, that teacher now has this expensive new device in front of them that they don't know how to do. And maybe you don't know that they just got it. Right? It might take you like 2 or 3 weeks before somebody mentions, hey, Susie down the road got a $3,000 whatever on her wall. So it's always interesting to be in there.
Absolutely. And, and you'll be surprised, Jeff. One of the things I've had that's worked really well for me recently has been utilizing my IT staff as part of some PD and facilitation. I mean, you kind of don't think about that in the back of your mind. You think like, oh, okay, well, I don't want to be the guy who just does break fix. But sometimes your IT staff, are knowledgeable in a lot of areas. I've got an IT guy he seems to be an iMovie kind of whiz and master. That's his thing. He likes putting things together, utilizing iMovie. So when I have teachers that ask, I'm willing to help, but I throw his name out there a lot. I'm like, hey, go ask Dave. Dave loves doing it. When we do in school like PD days or sessions or whatever, then I ask him, hey, run a workshop, run a training, let people see you in another light other than just the IT. And like you said, I think both groups start to work closely together.
I often find it's helpful to, work with your IT, even do like you might, you just kind of said this, do the training with them. If you're going to be installing a board, be there when they install that board. Maybe not every single board, maybe not every single software, but they're going to come at something from an IT department, an IT mindset, because they were part of the planning team. They were part of the decision-making team. They know some of the insides and outs. And obviously we each can't know everything about everything, but how many times have you walked into a room and someone goes, my screen's a little fuzzy, and you go, I don't know how to fix this. Well, you don't know that maybe a cable in the back's loose, and with 5 seconds you could fix it, right? You don't want to tell somebody to put in a tech ticket, wait a month, and then maybe they show up and then maybe they don't, when you can fix something in 2 seconds because you know how it was installed.
Yeah, and I'm telling you, that to me seems like probably one of the best ideas is just be there. Obviously, like you said, you don't have to be there every single time for every single smart board or jam board or whatever it is that's being hooked up speakers in the classroom, but be there sometimes because you understand the concept of how it's going to work or things that the teacher's thinking about utilizing that tool for, and you can then tell the IT person and you can help the teacher understand what IT's thinking. You kind of play the liaison between both groups, which is ultimately what I think the EdTech coach does, is walks a line between admin and teachers, IT and teachers, and it really starts to bring the groups together.
So let's get into our show today, Nick. We're breaking this down between what should an EdTech coach be doing every day, and then we're going to discuss what an EdTech coach shouldn't be doing every day. And look, there's so many gray lines and blurriness between all of these things, but let's just kind of go through the list. We've got 6 or 7 of these things here. Nick, what is the number one thing every tech coach should be doing every single day as much as possible?
I think the number one goal is just trying to get in the classroom. Ultimately, does that mean that you're going to be in the classroom every single day? Every single period? Probably not. I mean, it's very rare that happens. And sometimes we need those days where we just want to do some research and we want to have a slow day that we get to come, can do. That's right. It. To play around with the tools. I mean, there are times when I want to do that.
Right? I can't tell you how
one of our 6 or 7 on here.
you just want to sit back and look. I'm kidding, Nick, of course, with the Jamboard, but I mean, look, if you get in a nice piece of equipment that you're going to be showing off to the teachers, you do need a couple hours to play with these things and to figure out how it works and what kind of lessons can you do. And maybe you pull in a friendly teacher to say, hey, play with this with me. What do you think it can do? Because ultimately, you're the one that's responsible for being the advocate for these things. So number one, definitely, absolutely work with teachers in the classroom. But in order to do that, Nick, there's something else we got to do. What's number 2 on our list?
Number 2, you need to be that open resource. You need to be available for teachers to swing by. So, even if you're not in the classroom, make yourself I love positioning myself in an area where teachers don't feel like they have to come knock on a door or find me in an area that, feels secluded. So being in the media center, being out in kind of in an open area. I mean, if your school has kind of a place in a hallway that's widened that has these kind of, these bistro sets. I've seen these new districts now kind of revamping hallway space. That's a great spot, to make it kind of comfortable. I would say stay away from the teacher's lounge. We've had that discussion before, but you want to be available so teachers can swing by at any time to see you, to ask questions, and to go for like a quick little 5-10 minute PD session with you.
And the third thing on the list here is it's all about making those connections. It's
Definitely
about networking, right? Because some teachers, Yeah, we talked about this in the last couple of weeks here, right? But some teachers want you and know you and will pull you in on their own and say, help me with this or do this with me. But a lot of times it's just, hey, how you doing? How's the kids? Do you have any kids? What are you doing? Like, what do you do over the week? Like, just making these networking opportunities here and getting to be a part of the faculty, getting to be part of the school culture, school community, being one of the group. So that way then people are comfortable bringing you in. Now, Nick, those are three things that have to do with the classroom, right? Like, being a tech coach is that multi-level thing that we keep discussing here. So doing the teacher thing is a good, it's a third of your job. But then there's the other third that we want to talk about here, which is meeting with administrators, right? And being that person and that sitting down with the principal and saying, hey, how are your goals? What can we do together? What do you have coming down the list that maybe I can help you out with? Is there anybody that, maybe you walked into the classroom and you're like, hey, I noticed that Nick wasn't doing X, Y, and Z. Would you like me to go work with Nick? Right? There's a lot of different things. Nick, talk to us a little bit about some of the ways that you work directly with your administrators.
So, we aim to stay in contact, pretty often. I feel like there's kind of an open door policy between me and my IT, my network administrator, technology coordinator, and the curriculum director and I. So the three of us really stay often in constant contact. And the idea that is that it doesn't always have to be formal meetings, but that we meet to discuss and talk about ways, even and we bring our building principals into this oftentimes. What are the building goals? What are the district goals? What are we doing in order to meet those things? We talk about what are the struggles inside the classroom? What are the needs? What are the hindrances on on why teachers are having struggles utilizing technology tools or not being able to do certain things that they want? So having these open meetings with admin works the tech coach as the liaison to kind of express some of the needs that teachers feel like they can't address to admin themselves.
Now, do you have any unwritten rules about these communications? For instance, if you walk into your principal's office, do you feel, or IT or whoever, do you feel comfortable saying, Mr. Smith down the street in the social studies wing needs help with this, right? Whereas maybe through an email, you might say, a teacher in room 122 is looking for, is there an unwritten rule of what we should and shouldn't and how we should communicate about these things? Because, on one hand, you really don't want to put in an email, Mr. Smith needs help, but your job is to communicate what's going on in the classroom. What do you think?
So, I stay away from email for a lot of things. If it's a quick contact or something that I know I'm just shooting as a resource or something for them, like, hey, keep this in the back of your minds. That's one thing because I may not need that right away. If it's something that's a direct need, I understand that there's a specific teacher issue. I think there's a struggle or something like that. Even if I know there's a particular teacher, obviously when there's one, there's more than one, right? Like we can never say there's one because generally if there's one teacher feeling that way, there's obviously going to be more with similar issues. So what I generally say is what you did. I try not to use names. I say, here's something we need to think about. It's not that Mr. Jones in room 208 of the history department doesn't want to use Schoology or can't use Google. It's that here are his struggles. I may just say, look, this is an issue we have to address. Some of our teachers aren't able to do these things because of, X, Y, and Z. And that just, then I feel like I'm not putting the teachers in an uncomfortable situation.
Now, the next thing on our list here kind of blends into that, Nick. It's taking those mental notes on what happens in the classroom, and that's not spying, that's not tattletaling. But I've been in meetings where out of the blue, an administrator says, "Are you noticing teachers using Google Slides? And how are they using Google Slides?" Right. Those are those opportunities where you're like, you know what? I see people using slides, but they're really just using them as PowerPoint presentation substitutes. They're really not being innovative. Now, that of course, is different than saying Mr. Smith doesn't. And it's an important conversation to kind of have these things in the back of your mind, because clearly when an administrator walks in the room, everyone's on their best behavior. But as the tech coach, you do get a chance to see at a different level, in a different peel of the onion here, what actually is going on in the classrooms. I mean, I've also had wonderful conversations with my tech director. I'm like, do you realize that in this building, 6 of the smart boards aren't working right? And he, no, I didn't know that. Well, that's because they didn't know to put in a ticket, or they didn't think it was important, or they didn't, whatever the reason is, the information about something is broken in a building didn't make it to the tech department. And sometimes it's up to you to be that, that advocate, that liaison between the two, whether it be through a tech ticket, an email, a conversation, to kind of activate the tech department to kind of swoop into action there. Again, if you can make something happen where an IT person walks into the classroom, fixes it, and leaves, you look like a hero, and that's always a positive for everybody.
Absolutely, Jeff. I think this is one of those things that you just have to do. You have to find an opportunity to do it. And it's not that you obviously can't take physical notes. I've been in a room where I've taken the physical notes themselves. But, I think what's the struggle for teachers often is, am I being evaluated? Is he kind of the birdie who's going to go back to then admin and whatever? And that's a discussion you have to have with your teachers. You got to build that comfort. You also have to get your admin to acknowledge and make it known that, no, you're not going in to do evaluations and things like that. Your job is solely what you said, Jeff, to go in the room and see how things are being used, because your goal is to then go back and figure out why it isn't, or ways for them to be more productive, or to help them free up time. Quick kind of little anecdotal story. I mean, I would never have noticed it. I sat in on a meeting with some of our students. That was like an assembly. And I sat in and I'm watching the assistant principal give a presentation, and she's holding a microphone up to the laptop in order to get the sound from a video that she's showing the students. I just decided to pop in. I was like, hey, let me watch this assembly and see what's going on. Jeff, right after that, I went up to her and we had a discussion. The whole idea was, why is that going on? I end up finding out that there's not a wire that's run from the stage wiring system to where the podium is. So she had no way to play audio. All I did then was, like you said, you make that call to IT, you mention it. Hey, I just need a 3mm audio wire to be run from one area to the next. And then we can play audio over at the podium for videos. And it was just something like that then the assistant principal was like, wow, I didn't even realize that. I didn't know that that's what the issue was. And then it's things like that you notice when you're inside the classroom, taking mental notes.
And that's why it's important, Nick, to remember that the Jamboards have wireless audio. Now, when you were saying earlier, I'm teasing. When you were saying earlier, don't take notes in classrooms, I want to make it clear there's been several times where, in having a conversation with a teacher, I'll pull out my phone and I'll open up a notes app and I'll start taking notes about what the teacher says. Hey, my bulb's burned out, my smart board's this, my this Chromebook over here needs to. So it's okay to take notes.
Right.
But it's not, but the act of sitting in the back, opening your Chromebook up and just typing for 45 minutes.
Right.
Don't.
And that feels more like an evaluation. And this is where Google Keep, baby, because that's my app that I love to open up myself and take those quick, mental notes.
Now, there's one more here, right? And it's basically, your job is to test out the things that need to be utilized for best practices. And we kind of covered this in the, test it out, play with it, and whatever. But for me to walk into a classroom, let's say a teacher's on their prep, I would have no problem going into a classroom and just checking things out to kind of see where they are. Mm-hmm. But really, I'm there to have a conversation with the teacher. I'm just kind of in that disguise mode of, I just want to make sure that your smartboard's working. Do you have a couple seconds? Right. And while I'm testing out the smartboard, it's, hey, so what are you doing with this thing?
Yeah. Yeah, you can actually use that. I mean, that's a nice way to kind of use the idea of being the ed technician to your advantage a little bit, to say, yeah, well, I just want to make sure, the Apple TV is working so you're not running into issues. And then that you can open up the dialogue. Jeff, I can't tell you how many times, and I'm sure it happens to you and other ed tech coaches, right? You pop into a room rather quickly. You're just seeing, hey, you're seeing what's up. And the next thing you know, that fosters a discussion from the teacher.
An hour later, you walk out.
Yeah, right? Exactly. You're like, well, that was supposed to be 5 minutes, but now we went over an entire thing.
Now, that's what we should be doing. Let's do a quick 360 here, or 180, I should say. What shouldn't we be doing everything? And you have down here, you shouldn't be breaking things, Nick. Is that what you're put down on?
Yeah, don't break them, and don't
break things.
Put them back together and fix them.
What do you mean by that? Because it is true. Like, people are going to ask you, please fix my.
Yeah, absolutely. So the idea is you just don't want to be the break fix person, right? Like, you don't want a teacher to say, to tell one of their students, I understand your Chromebook isn't working. Go see Nick or Jeff. They'll help you fix it. We don't want that.
Toughie.
Right.
I'll tell you, like, before college, I worked at Staples for 8 years. I can build and tear apart a computer, but I don't want to ever get called into the tech director's office because I did somebody else's job.
Right.
So can my sound card's not working. Can you fix it for me? And next thing you know, I've taken apart a computer. And you don't want to put yourself in that position.
Yeah. And again, I think it goes back to what we said in the beginning. There's a time and a place to do these things. You have to be very wary of what the rules are in your district. Did you have a ticketing system? Because that could be something that, could cause issues if you're just going around doing these things. But your IT staff need to show that they're doing, constant work every single day. And you're kind of now taking some of that work away. They don't have as much to show. I can see that side. The other side of it is then again, you're seen in this light that you're just the break fix, or number 2 on our list, Jeff, right? You're doing IT work. You're replacing some of the IT guys, and your job is to go in and replace a bulb, like you said in the beginning.
Now, in my district, we have 6 buildings, and I think we officially have 3 guys that run around, right? If I know that nobody is in that building and it's an easy fix, I have no problem calling the IT office and saying, I'm in this room, I've been working with a teacher, something came up, I think this is how I can fix it. Would you mind if I took this for you, or would you like to send somebody out? And mostly they're going to be like, just, if you can take care of it while you're there, great. It saves somebody getting in their car and driving over.
Mm-hmm.
So you want to do their work for them, but again, if you can make the situation better in any way for both them and for the teachers.
And I think that's going to come up, right? I think more often than not, if you tell your IT department that, hey, I got this, if you give me this and this, these are 2 things I may need in order to fix a teacher's issue, I think they're going to, be all gung-ho for it to get it done. It's easing stuff off their plate. You just want to be careful of how you get caught with teachers kind of thinking what you are.
And Jeff, again, that's the communication between you and the tech, between you and, the tech director, the upper, whoever. It's like, do you mind if I do this? Or if it's an IT issue, do you want me to be hands off completely?
Yep.
And of course, there's we've already talked about this. There's consequences for both actions in the eyes of the teacher.
Absolutely.
Now we've go ahead.
No. So I was going to say, that kind of brings us back to, what then becomes sort of the big issue for a lot of tech coaches is really our third bullet here, Jeff. I'm going to let you take this one, but I think this is a big one for a lot of us.
Now we talked about this. This has nothing to do with the IT department, but this really has to do with your relationship with the staff, with those teachers. And it's something that I've gotten into. There's something that many tech coaches that, we talk to have gotten into. It's you should never be alone in the room teaching students without anybody else. Now I say that and say, look, Nick, I know you have your teaching cert. You're legally allowed to be. I've got my teaching cert. But you should never be in a situation where you're demonstrating or teaching a lesson to the students and the teacher gets up and leaves for 20 minutes. Like, your job is to help teach teachers, right? Even though you might be in front of students, your job is to teach the teacher. You're modeling, you're demonstrating, you're not taking over the class. So I would say, the big thing that EdTech coaches should not be doing is playing the role of teacher.
Absolutely. And we get caught with that. Or what about the teachers? You're there to facilitate or help or model whatever it is, and the teachers knitting or grading in the back of the room, right? We've had a lot of these situations as tech coaches, and those are the things you don't want to be caught doing is just taking over the role of the main teacher, because the job is to be coaching, mentoring, and facilitating so that the teacher learns how to do the things that they are asking you how to do.
And if it's around the holidays, you always want to make sure that you can see the teacher's screen because they might bring you in to do something innovative and they're searching Amazon. I'm kidding. That never happens. So look, Nick, I mean, here's the question. Are we EdTech coaches or EdTechnicians? I like to think that we're innovative strategy specialists or some kind of version of that in between, right? Like, we're not the IT department and nobody wants to be coached. So you got to kind of find that struggle in between for what is your place in the building? What is your place in the district? And you know what, Nick, there's a lot more to this. And I think that our listeners out there have some good advice. There's a lot of different things that you guys can do. We want to hear from you. We're, of course, on Twitter at AskTheTechCoach. And, of course, you can find all of our archives over at AskTheTechCoach.com. This is episode number 48. And we've got a great run of shows between now and the end of the year. Nick, tell us what's going to be happening next week on May the 13th.
So next week, we're going to be talking about how the various schools, how different schools approach the tech coach position differently, you know, the various titles and what their expectations are for tech coaches. And Jeff, and then after that, May 20th, what's going to be our topic?
I love this one. It's called What Do You Do When Every Excuse Is True? And that's, you know, how many times do you walk into a teacher's room and say, hey, can I help you? Can I come in? Can I do something? Or you've been working with a teacher and, you know, you come back a week and a half later and you say, hey, did you follow up? And, you know, can we continue these conversations? And they go, I didn't get a chance to. My dog needed a walk, or my, you know, assemblies, or it was park season. Or so we're going to talk about how do you handle the pushback and the excuses from the teachers when, you know, your job is to get them to move, to get them to be innovative. And what do you do when things just aren't quite going in that direction? So it's going to be a great month of May, and certainly as we move into June, we're going to be talking about another topic that we're working on a blog post for, Nick, the ever-popular Google Takeout. Ooh. We started talking about this the other day, and I'm looking forward to putting this together with you. Google Takeout is the answer to everyone's question of, hey, I'm leaving the district. How do I take my stuff with me? So look out for that over on AskTheTechCoach.com. Lots of great stuff over on TeacherCast.net. Nick, it has been a great 48 episodes. Where can we learn about the things that you are doing in your neck of the woods?
So you can keep tabs on me on Twitter at @NAmarel.edu, or, of course, follow my blog at nicholasamarel.com.
And don't forget, we have our brand new and free online course helping you build your EDU brand. If you are a tech coach, podcaster, blogger, any kind of content creator that you are looking to get your mark in the world, build a little brand for yourself, get noticed, and I gotta tell you, make a little bit of money for yourself and for your family. Check it out over on our blog. You can, of course, find everything over on AskTheTechCoach.com, episode number 48. It is a free email course. We are covering content creation from every calendar angle. We are there for you guys. Build your EDU brand. It is a free online course. Check it out today. We've got over 100 teachers right now involved in this. We're having a good time. So check that out today. And on behalf of everybody here on the Ask the Tech Coach podcast, my name is Jeff Bradbury.
And I'm Nick Amaral.
Reminding you to keep up the great work in your classrooms and continue sharing your passions with your students.